So what was it like being an independent woman filmmaker, like back in the day, and how has that changed, like over time? Like, have you seen like anything change, like more women, or I guess just, yeah.
So back in the day,
like in the beginning, once you started working with the film.
Right. I just think of back in the day as, you know, like the real women pioneers. So it's interesting to think of it in those terms and the different obstacles that people from a different era would face, I guess. I think what was interesting to me as a filmmaker at that time, when I really started making work, was here at Evergreen, and I was exploring issues of sexuality and gender, and I was using my own and other women's stories to create these sort of like fictional narratives, documentaries, and I would use myself as a model. So I'd be not only modeling for my own stories and thoughts, but for those of other women. So I think it was interesting the way people viewed that then, and how they would instantly, or they would just assume that all of that was about me. And I would try to explain to people, no, I'm also trying to tell the story, you know, of other people's experiences. So it was really interesting in the ideas of objectification and feeling that even more so, you know, how do you escape that was one thing that I encountered in using myself. And you're also talking about objectification, but you're further being objectified and further assumptions are being made about you. And that's kind of not maybe where the question was headed, but
it was still, and I mean, I think
there was a lot of support from other women filmmakers and some guy filmmakers. I actually was part of a small group of people who were studying here. This is where I was introduced to experimental avant-garde cinema, and that was through Rex Ritter and Jason Boughton. Jason Boughton still works in film, and he's based in New York now. Rex Ritter, I think, works for Bank of America and owns a house in Portland. And he's making rap music now.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. But that was really eye-opening, the avant-garde experimental film scene, but also what I saw in that, there were a few women filmmakers, not very many, and it was one of those, another arena dominated by the, you know, white male artist too. So I think some of my work was informed by that I was making in response to and reaction to, while still trying to be true to my own experience.
Yeah, it seems like it's really hard to sort of juggle all those things and sort of were you ever faced with people that sort of, what's the word, how do I say it, like wanted to challenge the fact that you were challenging their position of power and their white maleness or whatever? Like, did you ever like encounter that, or?
I don't think so. I don't think I was making work that was confrontational in that manner. I think it had sort of the opposite effect, where you're a woman making work about sexuality, and so it's like, wow, you must be really sexual. You must be, you know, really open to, you know, without having to say, you know, you must be promiscuous and you must like sex a lot, or, you know, that's kind of how it seemed. I would be propositioned. And I wasn't only propositioned by men, I was propositioned by a couple of women too, to be fair, but it was mostly guys. And that really wasn't the intention of the work. So then again comes up that issue of objectification. You know, how do you, which is something I think about with the performances I do. The performance I do, I often use my own body, and I'm naked, or most of the times I'm fully naked, or very much so, and that's inspired by a lot of the performance artists from the 70s. And viewing this huge art exhibition of work, what was it called? WAC. survey of feminist art of the 70s, 80s, like 60s to 80s. They had it up in Vancouver, BC, but it's supposed to be this huge exhibition, and one thing that struck me was the women artists who were using, predominantly the women artists who were using their bodies and using them and just like in the flesh, you know, naked, nude. Most of them have what I guess would be considered the of traditional beauty. You know, they're more slender, they're thin, or like you don't see a lot of large bodies or different bodies. You see kind of the same figure. And that struck me because, you know, that's in my own work as well. And I'm like, well, am I just perpetuating things by, you know, being struck by going to this art exhibit and thinking, why are people coming to see this? There's a bunch of like pretty naked ladies. And so is that really, I mean, not that, I mean, hopefully it's not being distilled to that, but I wouldn't say that it isn't by people. I think that it was very powerful for me as an artist who happens to be a woman with a certain set of experiences and background to go to this exhibit and see this work that has informed and inspired my own work and interests. You know, is very powerful and moving in some ways. And at the same time, it was kind of a slap in the face of like, how do we escape certain things, particularly in terms of objectification and being sexualized beings?
I mean, it's everywhere. Like, you can't really escape it. Like, you see it every day, whether it's a commercial on television or an ad in a magazine or on a billboard. It's like nearly impossible to escape it, it seems.